I'm going to
Hello,
press OK.
hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining me here today on the Upcycled Cloth Collective. I am super excited because today I have one of my favorite teachers who I am about to speak to about adding some content to our online course. Many of you may know her already, because she's best known for her wonderful collection of books that she's already published on different ways to manipulate and play with textiles and textile layering and using heat to create really, really interesting and incredible finishes using textiles. So I'm super excited to present to you Kim. And Kim, can you tell us a little bit more about your life as a textile
Okay.
teacher?
Okay, well, thank you very much for that rather wonderful opening. I don't think I've ever had such a wonderful introduction. Thank you. It's great to be online with you, and it's great to have been talking to you. We've been chatting recently because we've both found sort of mutual interests
Mm,
with online teaching. And although you would not necessarily associate me with upcycling, most of the fabrics I use, apart from the interfacings that I use, are all upcycled.
mm, mm, mm.
But my teaching began 30 odd years ago. I was still teaching at college. I'd written my course, Experimental Textiles, which ended up as a 4-year course, because my students wouldn't go away. So I had to keep writing more and more levels, which takes time, because if it's an accredited course, which it was, it takes quite a long time to write the course because you have to have it
Yes,
validated. So
yes.
that was my life for a good 15 years, teaching experimental textiles. And then while I was teaching that, I got invited to write a book, Hot Textiles, which was unbelievable because it's not something that I ever considered. I
Okay,
was
so
happy
you'd never
teaching at
planned to
college.
write a book?
No, it was just, yeah, it took me 2 years, and the samples in the book are not the best, but that's what I was working on at the time. You're talking about 2007
Yes,
when I was first experimenting. So they're quite old samples for anybody buying the book now, but
yes,
still relevant.
yes.
Um, so because the book came out, I obviously became more noticed and more noticeable. And obviously the internet wasn't particularly lively. There wasn't an awful lot of social media when the book came out in
Yes.
2009. So it was because the book was published all over the world, that people that ran the Australian forums noticed me. And that's how I started to teach in Australia and then New Zealand, and I've been teaching out there every year, apart from COVID, really, because
Okay,
that put the muckers on things a bit.
okay,
But I was teaching at college for quite a long time. Then I went freelance because I was getting asked to teach up and down the UK, doing embroideries guilds lectures, workshops, that kind of thing. So
okay.
that kind of teaching it in college is very different to teaching freelance on a Saturday morning in a scout hut, and you have to get
Yes,
there and set up the tables. So it's a different kind of way of working and learning very fast how to
yes,
teach in those kind of situations. You have to be ready for anything. Like normally, if the power went out because we turned all the irons on, because I was promoting mostly working with heat, because
yes,
we all have to find our own niche. As a
yes,
tutor, you can't really use other people's techniques. It's not fair.
yes,
Although we
yes,
all use all different kinds of techniques, we tend to be noticed. I'm sure you are aware of this. For a
yes,
particular section of textiles, I would, although I do a lot of free machine embroidery, I would never teach it because my friend Wendy Dolan teaches it, and so do many other tutors.
yes,
So
yes,
everybody kind of has their patch.
yes.
So I've kind of stuck to the hot textiles patch.
Did you ever get to a venue where they had carpets and you couldn't teach in an environment like that, or something like that that really caught you off guard?
A lot of situations catch you off guard, and you just have to go with it.
Yes,
Our main problem is that we had to paint Bondaweb usually for a workshop, because that's what the
yes,
guilds or the groups have asked for, and then you have to lay that down on newspaper somewhere clean and tidy.
yes.
So most of the time, I know, I think I've been pretty lucky. to teach in some pretty amazing places. The odd scout hut that was a bit damp and horrid. As again, I say, the more problematic part of my teaching was finding out where the mains electric cupboard was and where the circuit breakers were,
Yes,
and if we could get
yes,
to them,
yes,
and working out the power situation. I was pretty lucky. And my students, I mean, all students, because we're all generally ladies of a certain age, so most of them know how to behave and not run around silly and dripping paint everywhere all over the floor. But
yes,
there's always all kinds of situations.
yes.
Sadly, I can't think of one for the minute. Uh, but anyway, I kind of enjoyed doing that. And then I moved over to Ireland because I used to live
Okay,
in the UK. I used to live in Brighton, a very busy town. And I
yes,
got to 60 and thought, do I really want to do this anymore? So I moved to Ireland on the edge of the world, hence the cows behind me.
okay,
I can watch the cows going in and out to milking every day, which
yes.
is just the most wonderful rhythmic. It just slows you right down.
So,
And
so
so I'm
you've
teaching
traded for
online now.
quality of life.
Yeah, it's totally changed things because I teach online now, unless I'm teaching in Australia or somewhere. Obviously, it's better to be with people if you can. But most of the year I'm teaching online. I have a video library now.
Okay.
But this is lovely to actually talk to people in real time. Although you're in South Africa and I'm in
Yes,
Ireland, we can talk together at the same time. I just love it.
yes.
It's an absolute privilege to talk to you. I can't tell you, and
It
see you.
is. It is quite magical. I love it too. I love it too. And for those of you who are watching who are interested in Kim's online content, when I've finished posting this video, I will put all of her links into the comments so that you can follow them and find all of her stuff. We'll also add the links for her books so that you can find them if you're interested in them. So,
Thank you.
so Kim, because we're presenting to the Upcycled Cloth Collective, and you've mentioned that many of the textiles that you use for your projects are upcycled, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about why upcycled textiles are important to you?
It all started, I noticed it more and more but when I moved over here, I noticed it's kind of like a life brain fart or whatever you want to call it. I
Yes,
suddenly realized when I was living in Brighton and rushing around, and I could live, I could pay my mortgage, I could pay my bills. I didn't have a lot left, but I was comfortable. I could order a takeaway and it would be delivered within an hour. You could deliver from an online service for plant pots or whatever, and they'd be there the next day. And
yes,
I was feeling I was starting to lose the value of things. I was taking a lot of things for granted and feeling quite entitled, which I think a lot of
okay,
us do now. Not necessarily in South Africa, I understand, but certainly in the UK and Europe, I think a lot of us are
yes,
feeling quite entitled and we don't realise that.
yes,
And it isn't necessarily a nice thing to be. Um, and I've always tried to use recycled textiles. Because I was taught to use scraps of fabric. I never did a City and Guilds qualification because the tutor that taught me on my two diplomas told me not to do the City and Guilds because it changes the way that you think and you work.
okay,
And she wanted to develop my experimental ways. So I was always interested in fraying and picking bits up. Obviously, natural fabrics fray beautifully and you can
yes,
bend them, stretch them, quilt them, you can manipulate them in so many different ways. But I wasn't particularly interested in meters of things. I
yes,
don't have a quilter's mind. I don't like reams and reams of fabric. I like reams
yes,
and reams of interfacing because that's an exciting opportunity. It's the only thing that I do use brand new. Um, but I just love bits of stuff. And because I use silk fibers, wool fibers, you can kind of combine things with needle felting or felt making. Well, obviously, I'm not known for this. This is what I used to teach. I used to teach as many textile processes as I could. So I can teach a lot. I'm just known for more experimental processes. But I just love bringing things back to the most basic techniques
yes,
and
yes,
beautiful color. And I believe you can either have texture or color. I don't think you can have both because your brain can't cope with all the information.
okay,
So if you want
okay,
to have lots of
interesting,
texture, then you keep the colors down to tones of one or maybe two colors. Or if you love color, then just go mad with it and have a lovely time.
Yes.
So I learn all the time. I mean, you don't just become a teacher and learn and know everything. You're forever learning. And
Yes.
I think the older I get, the more I learn, the more I realize there is to learn. You just think, oh, how much time have I got left to do all these things that I want to do? Because you just learn so much all the time. Talking to my students online, because we have online Zoom chats, much like this.
Yes.
And you learn from them and from what they're doing. It's
Yes.
so exciting. But I'm definitely drawn to using. I'd rather pick something up off the floor and wash it and play with it and muck about with it. So I like to combine things like bottle tops and yarns that I've got from the charity shop, or the op shop as they have them in Australia. It's sorry, I'm doing this with my hands. It's because I tend to work in 3D. It's all about putting things together. I don't necessarily work with the material that I'm working onto a background. I tend to piece things together to see how they lay, and I take my time, and I have no idea what I'm going to have at the end of it.
Okay. So you use a
Which,
generative process as opposed to going, this is my plan and I'm going to
yeah.
retrofit the steps to get to that.
No, I
Okay.
tend to experiment, and then ultimately I'll see if through the process, the designing through process, if you like, I can form it into 3D rather than putting metal forms in it or whatever.
Yes.
I like the process to create the 3D effect.
I love
But
I love that. I love
it's
that.
difficult to put me in a box because I don't kind of make anything in particular. I like to experiment, and I love to encourage play. But it's difficult because not a lot of students will sign up for a workshop and not know what they're going to get at the end of it.
Yes, 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 yes,
My
yes.
students are brave and few and far between, but we have a good time.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned that, and I think that's quite a useful kind of topic for other teachers who might be watching this video. To understand that it is easier to sell a course if you're making something that people can see the end project, as opposed to teaching techniques and encouraging bravery, because they're two very different kinds of workshops that you're going to do. The one is very kind of step by step and constrained, and the other is all about adventure and exploration. So I can understand how there would be two very different mindsets for students who sign up for that. So that's very interesting. Something that I'd like to circle back to, if you don't mind, Kim, is the question about accreditation, because we've got other teachers who are going to watch this video also. And I found it interesting that you mentioned that the first 4 years of your teaching was all about creating an accredited process, whereas now it sounds as though you've moved away from that when you say you don't want to go through the city and guilds process. Other teachers who are just getting into teaching, who feel they need to be accredited before they can start teaching, what are your thoughts around that?
Do you mean accredited as a tutor or the course being accredited? Because I'm both.
Okay,
I'm a trained tutor
I'd love
as well.
to hear how you think about both.
Well, I won't belabor the subject. There are, it's probably best not to talk about it on here, but there aren't that many people that are teaching online now that are actually tutors. They aren't trained at college to teach.
Yes.
I'm sure they're very well qualified to teach their subject, but they don't. Anyway, that's one of the ways. Teaching an accredited course is brilliant because you have a framework. And one of the most wonderful things about it, if it's accredited, you learn about the different levels, like level 1 being the entry, level 2 being higher, and up to 4 diploma level. And then after that, it's further education, or higher education. So I was a verifier and then a much wider spread verifier because of my experience, because it is quite interesting trying to work out different levels, particularly when I was teaching the 4-year course, Experimental Textiles. I just brought them in as entry level. They didn't really know what they were doing. So we did so we had, it was a 30-week course, 2.5 hours a week. The first 20 weeks, I taught color design, fabric painting, silk painting, rag rugging, felt making, silk paper, all those kind of things, embroidery, quilt making, all that kind of stuff. Then the last 10 weeks, which was most unusual. They had to make a final project that they would hang themselves.
Okay.
Hang themselves in the exhibition, me.
Yes.
So, and that was brilliant because they had to do the research, all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to create textile artists, people that could work independently of
Yes.
me.
Yes.
And as we went through, certainly by the time they got to the fourth year, because most of them carried on. In fact, most of them are still carrying on in the groups that we started all those years ago, and they're still exhibiting, which makes an
Okay.
old lady proud.
I'm sure.
So that's special. But it was when they started to go to university and to art colleges and things with their portfolio of work from the course.
Yes.
We don't have sketchbooks. I don't use
Yes.
sketchbooks. We have workbooks where they keep samples and they write them up. So we don't do pretty sketchbooks. I've never kept a sketchbook because I work in 3D and it won't fit in there. But you have to help them if they're gonna, you've got to, when you're teaching on a course and it's accredited, you have to think about what the progression route's going to be.
Yes. Yes.
And a lot of my students have gone through college and university and done BAs and MAs in textiles or printmaking, and it's just very exciting. And then you go through social media and you see what they're all up to and how they're exhibiting and how they've developed their own work. Because the whole point of my teaching is people develop their own work.
Yes.
They don't copy somebody else's.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why my teaching is so awkward, because I don't show them my work. I show them processes.
Yes.
So it's not popular, but when people go for it with faith, they create incredible work that's their own.
Yes, yes. I love that aspect of your teaching. I think it's wonderful. I think it's really wonderful that you're nurturing artists to find their own artistic voice. There's not a lot of teachers who teach that way. Here in South Africa, I often encountered people, because similar to you, I was process focused. And I would often have people say to me, but you're not making a specific project. And some people need those restraints. But it's not a great way to grow an artist.
It's not. I mean, it's
voice.
good to learn. It's good to learn basic processes, but even when you're working through somebody else's basic processes, you're starting from their basic processes, not your own.
Yes.
And that changes what would have been originally yours. And I know this is a very fine point, but it makes all the difference, because you learn your own way about composition, how color works.
Yes.
If you've already started by using somebody else's ideas, and then there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And I know most people do, because it's a safe thing. It's very difficult to try and teach people the way that I do, because there are no rules or laws about it. I just do it because I have the experience, and I passionately believe in it. But it's a very hard thing to do. It's much easier to teach a course that's, you do that, turn that left, stitch that down. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as people are achieving something. I think particularly women, there is a very big issue with self-esteem, how people see themselves, even more so these days. And I think if anybody can be encouraged to achieve something, even if it's an egg cozy, whatever it is, it's really important. Once you get further down the line and you look at somebody like me, then that's fine. But again, it's a very much acquired taste. And yeah, I can't imagine that most people would be that interested.
Yes. So
we have fun.
So what you've mentioned has reminded me of a story of mine. Once when I was teaching in Swaziland, I went to work with a company that made very beautiful mohair products. And the ladies who worked in the factory had been there for many years. And I did a workshop with them where they made tie-dyed t-shirts with me that they were actually allowed to take home to show their families. And it was massively empowering for them, because their families knew they went off to work every day to make money, but they had no idea of how competent these women actually were at the work that they did, because they were never allowed to take these beautiful finished products home to show their families. So I think that what you're talking about around self-esteem and making something for yourself and
Mm.
being able to show it to others is very, very, very powerful. Very powerful. So, Kim, you and I are here today because you are putting together some content for me to add to the Upcycled Cloth Collective's online course. So, for those of you who are watching, we are putting together a course for the Upcycled Cloth Collective where we're adding little snippets of content from different teachers from all around the world, which gives you a chance to have kind of a buffet of topics and different teachers that you can explore for one great price. And Kim has very kindly agreed to give us a piece of content to add. And she hasn't yet told me what she's planning on adding. So this is a surprise to me too. I'm also finding out right now, along with all of you. Kim, what do you have planned for our course?
I don't know. It'll come as no surprise. I know it will involve natural fabrics. I know it will involve stitch. It will
Okay,
involve fabrics that I've dyed myself using
okay,
Procyon dye. So it'll probably be things like silk, viscose silk, some nice heavy linen pieces. They'll be frayed. So it'll be very different to what people are used to seeing with my zap, pow, slash and melt kind of thing with synthetic fabrics.
okay,
A lot of my own work is using silk, is using natural fibers because I love holding them. But I do more hand stitch now. The older I get, the less I use the sewing machine, unless I'm doing something functional or free machine embroidery.
okay.
The machine kind of gets in the way. It sounds very romantic, but I just
That's
love the
interesting.
holding and the shaping. So it will be 3D.
Yes.
It will be natural fabrics. It will be hand stitched, probably with threads that I've dyed myself as well.
Okay.
But apart from that, I haven't started it yet, so I don't know what I'm going to make.
I love it. I love it because your description has already got me salivating.
It will be colourful. There'll be a lot of colour.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Oh, oh,
so
I'm so
yes,
excited. I'm so
and it'll
excited to add
probably be
that.
about that sort of size because I love that
Okay.
holding. It's going to be a treat for me to do this because I'm always making samples for teaching. So it's
Yes.
lovely to have not a kind of a challenge set to me for me to make something and me to have to think, oh, what would I like to do? Rather than trying to encourage somebody else to do what they want to do. So this is a real treat for me. So I
Lovely.
hope you'll like whatever I end up with.
Well, I must tell you, it's as much of a treat for me because I've had a fangirl crush on you for the longest time.
Oh,
I've always
Rosie.
been fascinated at your work, and when you agreed to do this, and when I actually realized that I could have one-on-one conversations with you, I just got so excited. So thank you so much for doing this for us. I really, really appreciate it. I think you're going to add such rich value to the online course.
It's a
And
real absolute, but it is a treat, Melanie, because of what you do. Because I've always known about you, obviously because of the internet and you get so many things through your Facebook feed and everything. But
yes,
just seeing what you do and that recent video that you put up, talking about the cloth collective in Africa, South Africa, was absolutely fascinating. And I think we need to do more of this. We need to do more talking and more sharing.
yes,
And just share
yes,
the love, particularly when you're getting older, because who are you going to give it to? It's all in your head. I mean, I need
yes,
to earn some money with the video library, but you want to share what you know and help other people coming through behind you.
yes,
So
yes,
if there's
yes.
anything that I can do to help, please say,
That's
because
amazing.
I'm
That's
enjoying
amazing.
this.
Yay. Have you ever thought of taking on an intern, Kim, to bring up behind you?
Um, it would be difficult because this is me,
Yes.
because they would then, I mean, I can show them the basic process. I mean, I've got interns all over the world because I've got students all over the world that have learned my processes. It's not my work. I don't show
Mm,
people my work
mm,
because people will automatically copy it. There's
yes,
already an issue with my rampant herringbone that I do in my stitch, which I do show. And now a lot of people are using that in their work, and you can see it right across the internet now. But
yes.
I mean, that's going to happen. It's fine. But I don't show people my work. I only
Yes,
show people
yes,
the processes that I teach, then there's no issue,
yes,
because everything that they do is their own.
yes,
Um,
yes.
so
I
I
find
don't
that
think
very
I could. Can you see a way that I could? I don't know. I suppose I'm not very good at sharing. I'm good at giving. I'm a Scorpio. I'm not. I can't share, but I can give.
I love that. I love that.
That's an
Gifting is
interesting. It's an interesting question.
yes,
But I kind of trained all my, if you like, interns, particularly when I was teaching experimental textiles, because I
yes,
was teaching felt making, silk paper, and all that kind of stuff. And then all my students left college, and then they all started teaching felt making, silk paper. So I couldn't teach felt
okay.
making anymore. I couldn't, because I didn't want to step on their toes. Do you know? So I've kind of
It's
developed
interesting
lots
that
of.
you've stepped back from that. You don't feel you need to hold or own that because you
Well,
taught.
but this textiles is such a huge field, and because I'd written hot textiles, it seemed to be the way to go. And
Yes,
obviously, I got asked to write other books, and none of the books are very popular, because they're so niche. Hot textiles
yes.
is still in print, but you probably won't be able to get the others unless you buy them secondhand. And
Okay.
sometimes something like experimental textiles is like £85 on a certain online store, or it could be
Yes,
£5 depending on how
yes,
many they've got on stock. So
yes,
um, if you ever get hold of one of my books, then do read it, because it's not about
yes.
stroking the pages. It's all about reading. It's not a lot of words. I can't get past 19,000 words. I seem to stop there.
Okay.
It seems to be my
Okay.
limit. Um,
And and
but
and
no, I think you have to let your students develop. If they copy something exactly, then I would have words. It's like
okay.
people that teach workshops called hot textiles and stuff, because it's kind of like my thing,
Yes,
my tag. Occasionally I have to just go.
yes.
But you can't stop people.
No,
But
no,
it's,
no.
it's a bit like being a mum. You want your babies to grow and develop and have a lovely
Yes,
time. So
yes,
you help
yes.
them as much as you can.
I love that. I love that. That's such a wonderful way of looking at it. What did you learn about the bookmaking process? If there's anyone watching who's a textile enthusiast who feels like they've got a book in them that they want to get out there, do you have any thoughts on that?
Self-publish.
Okay, okay,
Um, you've got to remember, this was before the internet, before ebooks,
yes,
when I first started. Now, most of the publishers, that's what my publisher included, want project-based books, step one, step two,
yes,
which is not what I do.
yes,
So that's why I stopped. Reclaimed Textiles, my last book, has one or two step-by-step kind of projects, because otherwise they wouldn't produce the book if I didn't put projects
okay,
in there.
okay,
And it's, you need to look. I will never. I made a little bit of money with hot textiles, but none of the others. You get very small amount of royalties. But you see, I'm
yes,
not Anne Kelly or somebody that promotes it all the time and all that. If you keep promoting your book and your publishers, and it becomes its own thing, and I didn't want
yes,
to become a permanent author. I wanted to
yes,
teach and play
yes,
was my.
yes,
So
yes,
I've never earned very much money. And also because my subjects aren't very popular. I mean, I have a small core, so that the
yes,
books did okay. But I think if you can, if you have, I've never had the money to self-publish, but it is much easier now. And obviously
yes,
you can do ebooks now. But I mean,
yes,
people my age, obviously we're going to be dying out soon, but we love to hold books and stroke the
yes,
pages and smell the
yes,
paper and all that kind of thing, whereas other people are used to ebooks. So if you could be commissioned by a publisher, as I was,
yes,
then that's obviously amazing and
yes,
incredible, and go for it. But just make sure you've got someone that can read it through and edit it for you, because no matter how many times you write something and you think you've checked it, there'll be something that's wrong in
definitely. Definitely. That's been my experience too. It's been my
there.
experience too. So, Kim, we've got 5 more minutes left. Um, do you have any parting thoughts for textile enthusiasts out there who are trying to find their artistic voice?
It's unlikely you're living from it.
Mm.
I never have, which is why I teach, which is why I haven't developed a big body of work, because I have to earn money. But I'm lucky enough to be in a position to I can teach what I want to people that want to work with me, which is wonderful. And I do the odd piece of work, which is nice to be asked to do a piece of work for your online thing, because I haven't made anything for a while. So it's exciting. Just do what you love and have the confidence and the faith that it will turn out. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it day in, day out. If you don't feel like doing anything, work small with your favorite things and just get over that hump. Everybody is creative. Don't think you're not creative. Every single person on this earth is creative. Everybody can do something. You have to find what makes you feel, and just get on with it. Don't work too large, because you end up using lots of resources and it gets very expensive. But try and do what you love, but don't expect to earn your living from it. If you do, then you're very lucky.
Yes. Yes, that is very, very, very valuable advice. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your thoughts with us. So for those of you who are in the Upcycled Cloth Collective, look out for my posts where I'm going to announce the new content that's coming. I'm not going to put Kim under any pressure for dates to have it ready for me, because I trust that it's going to become what it is, and it's going to be birthed in its own time. And as soon as we have content for you, you'll be the first to know. I will be posting it into the group for all of you, so that you can be the first to explore the new information that Kim's going to add to our online course. Thank you so much for your time today, Kim. I appreciate it very, very much. And I look forward to
thoroughly
seeing
enjoyed talking to you, and I know we'll be talking again, because we have a lot to talk about. It's a very exciting time in textiles across the world. Yeah, I'm looking forward to our ventures together.
Yeah, thank you for collabing with me. This is hugely meaningful.